Unit 5, lesson 5 it is. So we are going to take a look at using some technology. There's many applications out there that you can use to calculate any of the variables for compound interest or present value of an equation. So you can calculate the interest, you can calculate the time, you can figure out different variables. We're going to use the easy financial calculator that's on the iPad. So if you haven't gotten an iPad already, you should pause this and go get an iPad and use the easy, literally E-Z, calculator. So if you haven't got that, go find it, and I'm going to go through with you how to use it. So the TVM Solver, once you find the easy calculator, you open up the app, and at the very top of the home page is TVM Calculator. And you tap on it, and you'll get a screen that looks similar to this, but there aren't any numbers in it. So we have to put some numbers into it. If I look at the example up here, the value of $5,000 invested for, whoops, I'm missing a letter, for 4 years at 3.5% compounded monthly. So you have to be careful when you enter the present value of your investment into the TVM calculator. So the $5,000 is the present value, but when you enter it as a number into the TVM calculator, it always needs to be a negative number or it won't work. So make sure you remember that when you're using the TVM calculator, the present value always has to be a negative number. And then you can enter everything else just as it shows. 3.5% compounded monthly. You don't need to worry about changing it to a decimal. You don't need to worry about dividing by 100 or dividing by anything when you put it onto the TVM calculator. Just put 3.5. What you do have to watch is your compounding. It's compounded monthly, so make sure that your compounding says monthly. If it doesn't, tap on it and select the appropriate compounding period. And then if it's compounded for 4 years monthly, make sure you put the right number in. 4 years, 12 times a year would be 4 times 12, and that's where the 48 comes from. So you've had practice doing all of this basically with the formulas you've used, and now we're going to take a shortcut and use the app for it. So once you've got those values entered into your TVM calculator, we want to figure out the future value. So once you've got it entered, all you have to do is tap the future value key, and your screen should look like this. So you can see now that your future value is $5,750.20. So that's the value of that investment. So if we start another one, we want the amount of money to be invested to reach a value of $10,000 after 15 years of 5% compounded quarterly. This time, the $10,000 is the future value. So you've got to read the questions carefully and make sure you put the numbers in the right spot. The rate, 5%, easy, you just put it in. And it's compounded quarterly. So we have 15 years, 4 times each year is where we get our 60 from. And then make sure it says quarterly. Once you've got all that, then you can tap the present value, and your screen should look like this, which means the present value should be that much. Doesn't mean it's negative, it's just the way the calculator works. So the present value would be positive $4,745.68 to earn $10,000 in the future. All right, 2 more questions. So by using this app, it means you don't have to use the formula, you don't have to calculate it in your calculator, the app does it for you. And there's a lot of different apps and a lot of different online financial calculators that will do similar things. Number 3, the interest rate required for $2,000 to grow to $5,000 invested for 10 years with interest compounded semi-annually. So whenever you enter the present value, which is $2,000 right now, make sure you enter it as a negative. We want it to grow to $5,000, so it goes in the future value. And it's 10 years compounded semi-annually. So 10 years times twice a year is where our 20 comes from. And then make sure your compounding says semi-annually. We want to know the interest rate, so you'll hit the rate button when you've got everything entered correctly, and it should come up with a rate of 9.38% compounded semi-annually. So while we're working through this, you might want to pause it and try some of them on your own and then see if you've gotten it to work. The amount of time needed for $1,000 to double if interest is 6% compounded annually. So be careful with these ones. When it talks about doubling, we're starting with $1,000. For $1,000 to double, it would be 2,000. That's where the 2,000 comes from, doubling 1,000. Remember, the present value has to be negative for it to work. 6%, type it in 6, and make sure your compounding is annually. So all you have to do is tap on that and pick the correct one. And then we wanted to know the amount of time. So once you've got it all entered, hit the periods, and we get about or after 12 years. So try using the graphing app now for the questions on page 444. Number 1 to 4 and 6 to 12. It'll save you using your formula in your calculator.